It is 10:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. NBA playoffs game one of the Western Conference Finals ended in a 112-87 final as the Golden State Warriors handled the Dallas Mavericks at home, holding Luka Doncic to just 20 points. To the NHL, the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the Carolina Hurricanes defeated the Rangers 2-1 in overtime, and the Calgary Flames and Edmonton Oilers combined for 15 goals in the Battle of Alberta as Calgary took game one, winning 9-6. Nashville Soccer Club bounced back from a loss in Houston last weekend to beat Eastern Conference leaders Montreal on Wednesday 2-1 in Geodis Park. Alex Muyl and Hani Mukhtar, the goal scorers. Nashville will stay at home to host Atlanta on Saturday. The Nashville Sounds won their fourth straight with a 7-4 win over Louisville, improving to 26-11. 3HL's own Ron Slay threw out the first pitch. Little low and outside. The Nashville Predators holding a press conference today as general manager David Poile and head coach John Hynes are speaking to the media together for the first time since getting swept by Colorado in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Adam Vingan of The Athletic reported Wednesday Hynes has been signed to a multi-year contract. And changes are coming in the NCAA. The Division I Council announced Wednesday it is waiving scholarship limits for football. Previously, schools were limited to 25 scholarships per year. It also eliminated requirements for conference championship games, allowing conferences to determine how teams reach their respective championship game. The Pac-12 quickly announced it'll do away with divisions and that the teams with the highest win percentage in the conference will play for the title starting in 2022. It is day one of the PGA Championship from Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa. Rory McIlroy at the top of the leaderboard. For all your foundation repair, waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once, and your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Let's have a day, shall we? Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Hope everybody is having a great one so far. We'll see if we can't make it at least a little bit better over the course of the next 3 hours or so. 615-737-1045. You can jump in on the show if you would like. 615-737-1045. We got a lot of moving parts today. Robert and Lucas are there to make sure that we can accomplish all of the things that we set out to do, or at least, in some form or fashion. The show just started, and we've already screwed up our day. Off to a hot start. Blame being spread around, fingers being pointed at one another, tensions in the locker room, perhaps a players-only meeting in our future. You want to come to the microphone and defend yourself for screwing up from my Twitter account today?
Yes, I really have nothing to defend myself for, and there's really no evidence pointing towards my culpability.
Other than the fact that you're the only person who has the login information for my social media.
Sure, but what proof is there of that?
The proof that sits on your phone of my social media account on your phone. It's literally in your hand.
Do you have a warrant?
I'll throw Robert a six-pack. We'll put on a search and seizure back there in the back room. Yeah, Derrick Henry contract details botched from my social media this morning, and no accountability from me whatsoever because it wasn't my fault. I didn't do it. You misheard me on the phone, and we screwed it up right out of the gate. But it's fine. We'll find ways to coalesce and come back together.
Oh, I misheard you. You didn't say the wrong thing. I misheard.
Have you? Listen, these are details that I think people maybe just too inside. But your phone sucks. Like the amount of times that your phone drops calls in the morning, or that you break up when I know you're not moving around. You're just sitting in the studio, but I can't hear you for periods of time. Yes, it's entirely possible because your crappy phone line, you didn't hear me right.
What if your phone sucks?
My phone does not suck. For as much money as I pay for that damn thing, I better be able to call Mars with my phone.
Nobody else complains about my phone.
TK on YouTube says, we want the Slay slander, not Lucas.
It's coming.
Oh, no. Big Ron. What happened yesterday at First Horizon? There will be time for all of those things later on in the show. John Hynes and David Poyle are going to give a press conference. I think this is the first Preds. Maybe we did a little bit of Pecorine on Pecorine's retirement where we carried their presser. But the idea that John Hynes and David Poyle are both coming back for the foreseeable future, I think is an interesting subject for what it may implicate as far as the hockey team is concerned. So we're going to carry that at 11 o'clock. We got Nick Saban sounding off at what event was he at that he was just firing shots at Jimbo Fisher in front of, ironically or not ironically, Alabama business owners who, while he says out there publicly that A&M is paying for all of their players in their last recruiting class, the one that is one of the best recruiting classes that Texas A&M has ever been able to put together, and that Alabama never paid a cent. We'll hear from Nick Saban later on. Dan Lust is going to be here in about 10 minutes as well, because we haven't talked about the Deshaun Watson stuff in a while, and so we're going to call our buddy the lawyer to walk us through basically where we stand right now. But this Saban stuff is fascinating in and of itself, and Jimbo Fisher is currently holding a press conference at this point. Now, it was supposed to start at 10. I have not seen any kind of hugely inflammatory comments just yet from Jimbo Fisher's press conference. Apparently, it's being held on the field at Kyle Field. I don't know what they're doing, but I know that there's probably going to be fireworks because Nick Saban, for those of you who didn't hear it, let's hear from Nick Saban about the allegations that he threw in Jimbo Fisher's lap yesterday. He's not happy about the way that things stand at this point. And I don't know how you could call it anything but a shot fired across the bow of the guy who beat him in the West last year.
We were second in recruiting last year. A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team, made a deal for name, image, and like. All right, we didn't buy one player. All right, but I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain that in the future because more and more people are doing it.
Nick. Nick. Buddy, what are you talking about?
Second time this week that we're throwing out Nick Saban quotes, wondering what he's talking about.
No, I know what he's doing here. I know exactly what he's doing here.
Yeah, yesterday's made much less sense about parity in college football.
Yeah, the parity in college football thing is gibberish as far as I'm concerned. What Nick Saban is very, very calculated for whatever you may think of him as from a hypocritical standpoint, because there's a little bit of that right now. Derek says Coach Saban is straight up lying. Well, I think there's levels to this, right? Because, one, Saban's pissed because the guy that beat him last year just got the top recruiting class, and they're doing it with some kind of money, whether it's buying every player the way that Nick's. And by the way, can we not call it buying players? Like, I know that's something that they do in European soccer, to buy players.
Quite literally.
It's a little too close to, like, livestock as far as I'm concerned. Let's try and avoid the context of buying the players. Can we please? Nobody wants to hear about how many high school football players you bought last year, Nick. Anyway. So Nick Saban's coming out hot, and not only is he taking out Jimbo Fisher, he went after Deion Sanders as well. His Aflac commercial buddy, his bestie, Coach Prime. What happened? So he's doing this in front of local business leaders in Birmingham, Alabama, for an event promoting the World Games, which is slated to take place in Alabama in July, of all the places to host the World Games.
It's in Birmingham.
Birmingham, Alabama?
Yeah, it's like all the sports that didn't make the Olympics.
Okay, well, that makes sense as to why they'd send it to Alabama. You know what? No, where's the next Olympics being held?
Great question.
It's a great question. I don't know the answer to that question. No, just to use an example, instead of sending everybody to Tokyo, let's send them to Birmingham, Alabama. 615-737-1045 is how you can jump in.
Paris 2024. On
the conversation. Lovely. I've been to Paris many times. It's much nicer than Birmingham. Anyway, so Nick Saban gets in Jimbo's craw a little bit. We'll see what Jimbo has to say here shortly. But then he goes after Deion Sanders. And he's saying about Deion Sanders that they paid Jackson State did, paid $1 million for that top recruit that they were able to sign as a part of a major coup, flipping him from Florida State and bringing him to Jackson State. Now, we know that there was name, image, and likeness stuff surrounding that. We also know that there was Barstool Sports money that was potentially tied to that, given Deion Sanders' connections to Barstool and the idea that basically a camera crew was going to follow this kid around for a year. So there's a lot of different things that go into this, and all the lines are blurred, except for the ones that Nick wants out there plain and obvious for everybody. Because I don't know how you all received that, or if you're hearing those comments for the first time, how they strike you this morning. But what I heard from Nick Saban was not necessarily just bitterness, was not the kind of thing that I thought was just Nick Saban lashing out. What I heard from Nick Saban in those comments was the idea that he's trying to rally the business troops. He's trying to say, hey, we didn't pay for anybody last year, but if we want to, you guys need to get your bleep together. Saban made his comments to local business leaders. And that the way that translates from my standpoint is, hey, you see what A&M's doing? We got money too. Let's show them. Because if you want to play this game, we can play this game too. And Nick Saban will find ways to win. What are you giggling about? What happened?
Jimbo has spoken.
Uh-oh. Is it good?
All I'll say is I was right. We should have carried it. We should have carried it.
We thought about carrying Jimbo Fisher's press conference this morning, and I said, no, Lucas, we can't. We're a local Tennessee sports talk radio show.
He came out hot.
Oh, but we have it, right? We have the comments?
We'll have it.
Yes. Excellent. So your phone calls on this next. Jimbo Fisher has a fire lit under his ass, and he is ready for it. So we're going to get into this conflict, the battle of the SEC West off the field, coming up next.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
I now have my greatest professional regret. My greatest professional regret is that we did not carry this Jimbo Fisher press conference live.
I knew it.
I'm so sorry. You were right. This is as right as you have ever been about anything that we have done on the radio show. To not carry Jimbo Fisher's response to Nick Saban live on these airwaves just for the pure comedic purposes of what this man who sounds like Kermit the Frog is going to say about Nick Saban, taking him out publicly at a Birmingham local business leaders meeting. Do we have audio of Jimbo Fisher going after Nick Saban? I've only seen the comments on social media. I have not heard them in his voice. Play these for me now and for the audience because we all need to enjoy this together.
First of all, I'll say it's a shame that we have to do this. It's really despicable. It's despicable that somebody can say things about somebody and an organization. More importantly, 17-year-old kids. You're taking shots at 17-year-old kids and their families.
Yes.
That they broke state laws. That they're all money. We bought every player on this group. We never bought anybody. No rules were broken. Nothing was done wrong. It was all in the way we do things, the ethics in which we do things. And these families, it's despicable that a reputable head coach could come out and say this when he doesn't get his way or things don't go his way. The narcissist in him doesn't allow those things to happen, and it's ridiculous. But when he's not on top, and the parity in college football he's been talking about, go talk to coaches who coach for him. You'll find out all the parity. Go dig into wherever he's been. You can find out anything. And it's a shame that you got to sit here and defend 17-year-old kids and families in Texas A&M because we do things right. We're always going to do things right. But we're always going to be here. We're doing a heck of a job. These coaches have done a great job. Our players have done a great job. The whole organization of recruiting people. It's despicable that we got to sit there at this level of ball and say these things to defend the people of this organization, the kids, 17-year-old kids, and their families. It's amazing. Some people think they're God. Go dig into how God did his deal, and they find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past, or anybody that's ever coached with him. You can find out anything you want to find out, what he does and how he does it. And it's despicable. It really is. And it's a shame we have to sit up here and have this conversation about things we do. And it's personal to us? Yes, it is. It's personal to A&M. It's personal to our players. It's personal to our coaches and everybody involved. And I know the guy. Know him really well. It's amazing that we're allowed to do those things. It's really despicable. And I hate it. For our players who are coming here, who did things the right way, have done things the right way, and will continue to do things the right way, I apologize to you that people insult you publicly the way they're doing it. And our fans, I apologize to you.
Some people think they're God. Go look at how God just did his deal. Jimbo, welcome to the fray. How did we get so lucky as to have this fall into our laps this morning? This is tremendous. This is why we love college football, right? Because now, it was already tribal in the SEC. And there's already tensions between Alabama, Nick Saban, Crimson Tide fans, and the Texas A&M Aggies, who were the first unbeaten program to beat Nick Saban in a very, very long time. Apparently, there is more of this, and we are going to play parts of this press conference for you throughout the day because Jimbo wants blood, and I'm here to watch him get it. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We got Rick in Hendersonville who's up first this morning. Hello, Rick.
This is great timing for my call. I want to know, and I actually had Texas A&M in mind with this phone call. I want to know when these deals are going to be made public to know what car dealership is paying a kid to do whatever it is they're going to be paying him for. Because I'm really curious about the kid from Knoxville Powell, the
Walter Nolan.
Exactly. I want to know how his deal with Texas A&M went down with him being right there in Tennessee's backyard. I'm just curious as to when publications are going to be put out about us knowing what the deals are. I'll hang up and listen.
Thanks for the call, Rick. It's a big question, right? And now the NCAA is going to muddy the waters because they're getting in here trying to police NIL collectives after letting it run wild for a year, creating situations like what we now have between, it's a pissing match between Jimbo and Saban, except this one has, it doesn't have anything to do with actual football. It's just who can outgun the other in this NIL arms race. Now this has leveled the playing field for places like Texas A&M. We've talked about Miami, the University of Miami, and what they're doing with all of the money from boosters that they're now infusing into the program in ways that they, for the longest, never had to do. But their hope is that they can buy themselves back into competitiveness. Hell, Tennessee. Why can't Tennessee do the exact same thing? And in fact, if you've been paying attention to anything that's going on with this Spire Sports NIL collective, just in general conversations with people about how organized and how well-oiled a machine that is, trying to get the University of Tennessee back on its feet and back closer to the greatness that many of you associate that football program with. Now, as it relates to NIL deals, the only people or the only place where the deals need to be disclosed right now is to the athletic compliance department to ensure that the deal is in compliance with state NIL laws. Or if a state does not have NIL laws, the school's own developed NIL policy. So everybody has something on the books that allows them to legislate and govern this very, very lightly, right? Because the universities, if the state doesn't have a rule on it, universities can make up their own rules. Now they have to be in compliance with certain guidelines, but it opens up to all of this. Now, Lucas says that we have more. We had a lot of Jimbo Fisher. He's asked if Saban has tried to call him, which I think is interesting because these guys obviously, how close they still are is a question, but they're obviously very, very familiar with each other. So let's hear from Jimbo again, shall we?
And our fans, I apologize to you guys for people saying those things about Texas A&M. But promise you this: there are no violations. There are nothing wrong. It's the second time we've had to do this with grown men who don't get their way and want to pout, throw a fit, and act up. Just go ask all the people who work for him. You'll know exactly what he's about. I always said this. My dad always told me this. When people show you who they are, believe them. He's showing you who he is.
Questions? To the left, Olin.
A couple of things, Jimbo. First of all, have you had any contact with Nick since?
No. Oh, he's called.
You just didn't take the call?
Not going to. We're done.
And
he shows you who he is.
And then I just wanted to.
He's the greatest ever, huh?
And then I just wanted.
When you got all the advantages, it's easy.
This is the most scorched earth press conference I've ever seen in college football.
I don't know what I have to do to make this up to you because you called me this morning. You called me twice this morning. We put together the show at about 9 o'clock, and then you called me at about 9:30 and said, Jimbo's talking at 10. We should carry it live. And I said, I so regret all of this. I so regret it. But now we have it in parts, and we can, oh, God, we're going to run this into the ground today. 615-737-1045. Dan Lust, sports attorney, is going to be here in just a second. We were going to talk about Deshaun Watson with Dan, and we still may do that. But honestly, I want to ask him what the legal implications of all of this are. Because we talked about, last time Danny was on the show, we talked about hearsay with Mike Mularkey. What the hell do you call this? Scott in Bethpage is next. Hello, Scott.
Not only was that a gift, it will be a gift that keeps on giving.
Bless them for this, Scott.
All throughout the fall and into next winter. It is so good. So good. There's nothing like it. You've got two egos that are just massive. I mean, you can see the light coming off of both heads in both states if you look from other states surrounding them. It's the egos are that big. So, okay, Saban was just trying to motivate the business owners, right?
Yes.
Like you said, Buck, I agree 100% with you. I really don't think the guy meant nothing that bad about it.
That's why he tried to call Jimbo, Scott. That's why he tried to call him. He's just like, it's just words. It's nothing.
Right. So you got the guy who's usually the number one in recruiting, number one in everything, has the best players, so on and so forth. So all he was doing was trying to motivate his people to match their efforts. Okay, so now you've got Jimbo sitting over here at Texas A&M in College Station, and he's sitting over here thinking, I cannot wait till this guy finally says something one day that just pisses me off, and I can just unload on him for all the times I hated working for him. That's all that was. And, I mean, you could hear it in his voice when he was speaking. I mean, it was all quivery and just very, very ill-prepared. That was he completely was waiting on Saban to just say something. And I think he picked the wrong time to do it. I don't think it was the right thing. I mean, Larry Saban kicked Saban's ass, said that a year ago at a boosters meeting. And now he blows off that he doesn't like Coach Saban because he didn't personally like him when he was working for him. You know, so that he's just sitting there waiting on an opportunity. That's all that was. I don't think the GOAT did anything wrong.
Thank you for the call, Scott.
As usual, lots of love. Lots and lots and lots of love. And your phone, and that wasn't Lucas answering the phone. That was somebody else.
That's right. Lucas should be sweating it.
Okay, well, I love all three of you now, so we're going to invite him into the party. Have a good one, guys.
Okay, goodbye, Scott. Scott and Beth Page. Been too long. Just under the music for the Oscars. It is so good. And we'll continue to dig into this. And in fact, Dan Lust, sports attorney, is going to join us here in just a second. I wonder, from Dan's perspective, are there any legal implications to what is now going on? The mud that is being slung between two of the most powerful coaches in college football, between Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban. Dan joins us now at Sports Law Lust, is where you can follow him. The Conduct Detrimental podcast is where you can go for all of the legal insights about your favorite comings and goings in sports. Very, very good resource, and we're happy to have Dan back on the show. Hi, buddy.
Buck, let's just say the bad phone has been blowing up this morning. We can thank our friend Nick Saban for that.
So help me understand, because the last time we had you on, Dan, it was we were talking about hearsay with Mike Mularkey and the Rooney Rule implications that were flung against the Titans on this podcast. Does what Nick Saban did yesterday meet that same description, or is there any legal ground for any of this? Because I don't know who's governing NIL, and I don't know what legal implications there are or are not.
So the phrase that comes to mind, we talked about hearsay last time. This one is closer to what we would call defamation, right? Not to say that anyone has risen to that level, but Nick Saban was letting it fly. We'll say Jimbo Fisher is in the midst of his response as we speak, and then Deion Sanders has already provided, his response.
Yeah.
So, Deion Sanders used a term. He said lies, right? Defamation is a term that's meant when you tell a falsehood or a lie about someone, and that thing is not true. That's the standard when it comes to a public figure, which Jimbo Fisher is, Deion Sanders is. If someone is saying something untrue about like a private citizen, there's a much lower standard to prove defamation. But if you say something about someone that you know is false and it harms that person's reputation, that's the making. It's not to say you necessarily win, but that's the making of a defamation case. So what you could do, right, is you could sue someone for defamation, which, is kind of the underpinnings of the fun, I don't want to say fun, but that Johnny Depp Amber Heard case that everyone's talking about.
Oh.
That's a untrue statement. That's the basis of this whole case. Or, right, if you were Jimbo Fisher, what seems to be the approach is fighting fire with fire, throwing out someone else's dirty laundry. So that's the non-legal response, which Fisher seems to be taking door number 2 here at this point.
So, if you were giving either side. Well, let's just say if you were giving Jimbo Fisher counsel, would you have let him or would you have advised him to take door number 2 in this way? Or do you think that there is a more level-headed approach that would be more beneficial to Jimbo Fisher rather than just getting up on his own podium and slinging mud back?
Well, it depends how many skeletons are in the closet, right?
Yeah.
I guess we're about to find out. So Jimbo Fisher, obviously, we'll call this in the biz, right? An emergency press conference. Jimbo calls it, and it's the following day, so it's important enough to address. Where I think there's this gray area, what Saban said, right? He said Texas A&M is getting out, and they paid for all their players. I'm obviously paraphrasing, but that's the gist of what he said. Texas A&M paid for all of their players. So you have people on Twitter, which I'm sure our listeners here saw the comments. I'm sure you guys did. Like, maybe you should look in the mirror, right, Saban? How are you guys getting all these players? You're talking about Bryce Young getting seven figures in NIL deals before he steps foot in the field. How did those players get paid? So it's a complex gray area in the law, right? Are these collectives allowed to work with the schools? Some states, and I believe Tennessee, where you guys are, is one of them, that have amended their NIL law to allow the states to actually work, to allow the schools to work with the collectives to some extent.
Yes.
That has been a conscious effort on lawmakers. But other states have not made that carve out in their NIL law. So some states can do it. Some states cannot. Alabama does not have an NIL law. So nothing they're doing is, quote unquote, violative of state law. But then again, is what Tennessee is doing, what the state of Alabama is doing, is that violative of the NCAA's guidelines? So, it's unclear, right? I think Fisher's comments, once we see the end of them, it's going to essentially be, we are doing what you are doing. And if what we are doing is illegal, what you are doing is illegal. That would be my sense of what is coming here if I had to project it out.
Dan Lust, sports attorney, is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Check out the Conduct Detrimental podcast, available wherever you get your podcast. A new episode available this morning for you to get the latest in all of the legal proceedings going on in sports right now. One of the biggest stories that we've had you on several times to discuss, Dan, is the Deshaun Watson situation. He admitted last week during a pretrial deposition that one of his disputed encounters with a massage therapist ended with a woman in tears. There was an apology sent to her by a text message. And this is the thing that in media circles it has been picked up and run with. I guess the most basic sense of the question that I can ask you for people is, where do we stand now with the Deshaun Watson situation?
So I think this is the easy way to explain it. And I think you guys obviously know very well the Ray Rice scenario that occurred in the NFL a number of years ago, where we knew about a physical altercation that occurred between Ray Rice and I believe it was his wife, a number of years ago. So the NFL looked at it, and then, they rendered, whatever they were going to do on that case. And then afterwards, the video came out and people saw it. And then the NFL had to react again. This new round of this accuser crying after this incident and Deshaun Watson sending some message purporting to apologize. I mean, I've known about it, for a year. Anyone that read the complaints in this case has known about it for a year. That's not new. It's not. And there's also uglier allegations in these complaints, which, that deposition testimony has not leaked yet, but much uglier than this particular incident that's being leaked. So what we're seeing is something similar. We all know how ugly these allegations get us in the legal space. But the public, once you put Deshaun Watson's words around them, and he's acknowledging portions of them, it starts to get worse. So he kind of asked Buck, what's next? There's a lot more deposition testimony that could be leaked, a lot more questions that are going to be asked of each individual accuser, each of these ugly allegations. And somehow this stuff keeps getting leaked to the media. So here's our time frame. There are reports that this week the NFL has met or is currently meeting with Deshaun Watson to assess whether his conduct, his actions have violated the NFL's personal conduct policy. And that's to determine how long he should be suspended for and if he should be issued a suspension. The problem here is that the parties, the accusers, their attorney, and Watson's attorney have agreed that no trial in this case is going to occur until after this year's Super Bowl. So March, right? We'll say of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So the NFL wants to suspend Watson soon, it seems like, right? If they're meeting with him this week, they want to issue some type of suspension next month or two. But what I'm telling you is this drip, drip, drip of depositions and discovery leaks to the media. That's going to continue to occur certainly after this 2-month window unless these cases are settled. So it's setting up for a position where we're looking at a Ray Rice scenario. The NFL issues some type of punishment, and then we have more, I'm going to quote them, put them in fact, quotes, bad facts or bad optics that come out after the fact. So what's next is a punishment, but what's next after that is more things that people are going to say, well, how did he get this suspension when this is coming out? So it's setting up to make Goodell and co not look great at NFL HQ.
That's the question. Dan brings it up. Where are the leaks coming from, and who benefits by having this information out there as this suspension and potential legal implications loom over Deshaun Watson's head? Dan Lust at Sports Law Lust, the Conduct Detrimental podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Always a pleasure, buddy. I appreciate you stopping by. I'm sure we weren't your first stop today, nor your last. There's a lot of people who are going to be calling on your services today, I imagine.
Buckle up and hop aboard the Sports Law train. It is nonstop, gentlemen.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. That's Dan Lust with us on 104.5 The Zone. So there's more audio from Jimbo Fisher that we want you to hear, that I want to hear because I haven't heard it. In fact, myself, Lucas, and Robert have been pulling clips all over the place. And, just like Danny said, buckle up. That's next. Is this shoot to kill? Is that what's happening right now?
Shoot to thrill?
Shoot to thrill. Okay. Shoot to kill's a line in the song. Anyway, yes. Jimbo's doing both.
Play to kill. Shoot to thrill, play to kill.
Jimbo is here. And he's ready. He's ready to go. Now, we were basically doing more show during the commercial break because what Lucas, Robert, and I have decided is that we earned this. We earned this day in sports content because of the sludge that we've been having to, truck through all through pre-draft, and now in the couple of weeks where there's just dead. It's just a dead space in sports. We earned this moment for Jimbo and Nick Saban to be going at it in a way that it falls into our lap. So we're very excited about it. Benny Mike sends us a message on YouTube. One question, Buck. Why is no one asking how much OU paid for the booty? General booty, that is. Yes. If it was Rick Pitino in Louisville, it'd be a much different conversation about booty. But we can't do those jokes here because it's FCC safe radio, kids. This is Jimbo's day. Today is Jimbo's day.
Today.
When do Texas A&M and Alabama play in the SEC West this year? I need the exact date, Lucas, if you could find it for me. Because now Nick Saban is all over SportsCenter. Now Jimbo Fisher is all over the internet. And there is a lot of arrows being slung at one another.
October 8th in Tuscaloosa.
So, God, it's in Tuscaloosa,
too. It's the week before they play Tennessee.
Woo! So, today Jimbo will win. Today Jimbo can say all of the things that Jimbo wants to say. He can pound his chest and he can let you know that he is here to take down his old boss. Especially when we talked about defamation with Danny Lust. Jimbo is now threatening physical violence against Nick Saban. He is saying that somebody needs to lay hands on the greatest coach in the history of college football. This is the audio from the press conference earlier.
You can call me anything you want to call me. You ain't calling me a cheat. I don't cheat and I don't lie. So I learned that when I was a kid. If you did, the old man slapped you side of the head. Maybe somebody should have slapped him.
He wants to slap. Just imagine Jimbo walking up to Nick Saban on October the 8th in Tuscaloosa in Bryant-Denny Stadium, just rapping him on the back of the head. This is what I want. Now, as I said, today is Jimbo's day. October the 8th will be Nick's.
Oh, and even beyond that, 6 months from now, Alabama's in the playoff with Texas A&M 9-3, 10-2 in the Sugar Bowl. This is where this needs to get settled.
Saban is coming at Jimbo's head with the best roster in college football, the best roster that he's probably had in the last couple of years, with the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, with arguably the best player in the country on the defensive side of the ball in Will Anderson, and they are going to welcome with open arms Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M into Tuscaloosa just to step on their throats over and over and over again. So Jimbo Fisher cannot pick up the phone today, as he said that he was not. He can say that Nick Saban is showing you exactly who he is as the greatest of all time. And by the way, he still is. This was so ESPN. I've got ESPN on in the studio. The PGA Championship first round is today. They interrupted nothing in sports interrupts Tiger Woods on a golf course. And Tiger's in this today, except for Jimbo Fisher versus Nick Saban. Tomahawk Chop on YouTube.
He's having a day.
He's having a day. It is a full-on Paul Feinbaum style fight.
I've never seen Tomahawk this flustered.
Well, because he's one man against many. Because it's not just fighting Tennessee fans today. He's not just fighting Texas A&M fans today. He's fighting everybody today. Because Nick Saban said the thing where A&M bought all of their players, and Alabama would never deign to do such a thing. It's beneath them until the Birmingham business leaders give them all the money to buy the next round of players. It is something. Oh, it's the comments are scrolling too fast. I've lost the comment that I wanted to read because
lightning speed.
They're doing their own show. They're doing their own show. The YouTube, the Zone TV chat, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch has taken on a life of its own, and we have zero control over it. But what I will say to you is that there is going to be, and this is, I don't know what the end result of this will be, right? Whether this enacts real change, whether now A&M is investigated, whether Alabama is investigated, whether Jimbo Fisher airs Nick Saban's dirty laundry as somebody who worked for Nick and understands him as a person. But I thought this quote from Lane Kiffin was laugh out loud funny because now everybody wants comments from all of Nick Saban's former assistants. So Bruce Feldman is reporting on this Jimbo Fisher press conference today. Jimbo Fisher on Nick Saban's allegations of Texas A&M having bought recruits. It's a shame that we have to do this. It's really despicable. We have never bought anybody. Jimbo Fisher lighting into his old boss, Nick Saban, calling him a narcissist. Some people think they're God. Go dig into his past and how he's done things. The SEC is wild. Just asked Lane Kiffin for his thoughts on Jimbo going scorched earth on his old mentor, Nick Saban. The quote from Lane Kiffin, speechless for the first time in my life. Here's what I'll say about this, right? Because I think this ultimately is beneficial for everybody. I think it's beneficial for Nick. I think it's beneficial for Jimbo. I think it's beneficial for Lane Kiffin. I think it's beneficial for college football as a sport. For these guys to be out there basically cutting wrestling promos on each other and bringing more people into the circus tent in May around college football, where the most interesting thing was going to be what? The league meetings in Destin in a couple of weeks? Now you know what just became must-see TV in ways that was nowhere close previously. Those same league meetings in Destin. And that hasn't even begun to scratch the surface of everything else that's going on in college football right now. But you just need to keep people's attention. And even though this is providing tension and making Jimbo probably uncomfortable and Texas A&M athletic administrators squirm because they think Saban's going to open up something that shine a brighter light onto them than they may like. And maybe the same thing happens to Saban in Alabama in return. Even though, Saban's saying, we've never bought players. Okay, Nick. It ultimately ends up being beneficial because we're talking about it. We're talking about college football on May the 19th. We're finding ways to get people engaged with college football on May the 19th. And even though that the subject matter may be, a little TMZ, sometimes that works and sometimes that helps. Just ask Jerry Jones in the NFL. Well, we have a press conference. Now, we carried the wrong press conference. We blew this today.
Alex Doherty just tweeted. He's at the Preds press room.
Yeah.
Said, standing by for what I am sure will be the most explosive sports press conference today. I won't even search Twitter for any other sports press conferences because I am sure this one will top them all.
He's talking about David Poyle and John Hynes. I really screwed this up for us. I said no to Jimbo Fisher and yes to David Poyle and John Hynes, who notably, bless them, are not going to say anything interesting. But we are going here. I shouldn't tease it that way because it is interesting what's happening with the Nashville Predators. They're getting ready to hold their end of season press conference. I have had zero interest in an end of season press conference for the Nashville Predators in my entire lifetime. But today, this is fascinating for one reason. Because of the two men who are holding this press conference, and because those two men seem like they're going to retain their job. You're going to hear from David Poyle and John Hynes, who apparently the Preds just gave an extension to, coming up next about how it is that they came to keep their jobs and what kind of message that sends.
It is 11:01. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. Things are heating up in the SEC. Alabama head coach Nick Saban said yesterday that Texas A&M paid for every one of its players in its latest recruiting class, the highest rated recruiting class in college football history. Jimbo Fisher had a few remarks in response today.
Some people think they're God. Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past or anybody that's ever coached with him. You can find out anything you want to find out.
Changes are coming in the NCAA. The Division I Council announced Wednesday it is waiving scholarship limits for football. Previously, schools were limited to 25 scholarships per year. It also eliminated requirements for conference championship games, allowing conferences to determine how teams reach their respective championship game. The Pac-12 quickly announced it will do away with divisions and that the teams with the highest win percentage in the conference will play for the title starting in 2022. We'll see how many conferences immediately follow suit. The Nashville Predators are holding a press conference as we speak. General Manager David Poile and head coach John Hynes meeting with the media together for the first time since getting swept by Colorado in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Adam Vingen of The Athletic reported yesterday Hynes has been signed to a multi-year contract. You can hear part of that presser coming up live right here on the Buck Reising Show. And the PGA Championship is underway from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Southern Hills Country Club. Rory McIlroy leading the way by one stroke. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
From one highly contentious press conference to another, welcome in to 104.5 The Zone. We're here with you until 1 o'clock. We've been talking about Jimbo versus Nick Saban all morning long, but another press conference is taking place locally with John Hynes and David Poile, head coach and general manager of the Nashville Predators, their end-of-season press conference almost a full 2 weeks later that is taking place right now at their practice facility. We go live to that here.
Not enough to win in the playoffs. We lost to a team that worked just as hard as us, but they had also had superior talent and depth. Our task is now to build on that work ethic and improve our talent level. Regardless of my choice of words as to what we're doing, like competitive rebuild, which I used last year, the reality is every NHL team is building and rebuilding each and every year. Tampa Bay won the Stanley Cup last year and had at least 6 players leave their team. So even they had to face a rebuild to some degree. And it's not always a long, drawn-out process. It can happen quickly. Sometimes it's one good draft. Sometimes it's one good trade. But every team, no matter how successful, is always making tweaks. It's just the reality of the salary cap league that we are working in now. We have moved on from several players in the last couple of years in an effort to get younger and be in a position to return to contending. By my count, we've changed out all but 9 players since John Hynes took over. But it's a process. And as you saw in the series versus Colorado, we're more than 1 or 2 players away. The job and the plan continues. And our plan has the backing of our ownership group, who have empowered me and my staff on the hockey side, and Sean Henry, who's here in the room, and his staff on the business side to run the franchise. Sean and I, along with Herb Pritch, have talked many times in the last 10 days, and we have the group's full support. I'm sure Sean would be happy to attest to this as well when we wrap up the formal part of this press conference. Switching gears, I am proud to announce that John Hynes and the entire coaching staff have agreed to 2-year extensions. I believe John has done an excellent job for us, taking over as coach on January 7th, 2020, leading us into the postseason each of the 3 years he has been here, helping some of our veteran players play to their players to the best years that they have ever had, while creating an environment where our younger players can grow and develop. Our coaches have helped us find an identity, play a hard-working style, and our power play, for example, improved to the best it has ever been. I believe John and his coaching staff are the right group to lead us back into contention, and I will do everything in my power to give him the necessary tools to accomplish that goal. Finally, one of the big topics or hot topics since the end of the season has been the contract status of Philip Forsberg. I think you all either met with him or talked to him after the season. Well, I can't give you a full update on the status of the negotiations. I can tell you that Philip has been a great player for us and that there's mutual interest in having him remain a Nashville Predator for the foreseeable future. And so we are going to continue working to try to find that right deal that works for both sides, and we know that he can be a big piece of where we are trying to go. So those are my statements, and we will open it up to questions for John and myself.
David, how much this plan moving forward is going to be dictated by the outcome of the further negotiations?
Well, that is clearly plan A. And, we're putting all of our efforts right now in this next month or so into executing on that.
Okay. I don't know what happened there with the press conference. Apparently, what, they cut the mic right when they started the Q&A portion? What happened there?
It's like going into mono and not stereo, so it's going into your ear, but it is partially going out over the airway. The audio situation is untenable.
Yeah, because there was a portion of that I'm so glad that we that's the press conference that we decided to carry. I'm pissed.
Right.
Anyway, so considerable interest in keeping Philip Forsberg, 2-year extensions, or a 2-year contract, rather, because John Hynes' contract had expired for John Hynes and his coaching staff, his entire coaching staff, which would lead me to believe, and we'll keep an eye on this as things begin to develop, which would lead me to believe that David Poile plans to be here for at least 2 more years, right? Not a fair assessment?
Yes.
You're going to be 74 running the Nashville Predators? Not that people, and listen, we got plenty of people in the audience who are in their 70s. It's not like I'm saying that you're not capable of operating in your place of business at a high level if you continue to still work at that age. But, I mean, at some point, why does it feel for this team, for this franchise, that there's just such a lack of self-awareness about what has happened? What has happened is that you have given people next to zero confidence that you are going to make substantial changes and that the results are good enough. I hear David Poile when he says that he is not satisfied with the results of the end of the season. I hear him. Truly, I do. I believe him. There's no reason to dispute what he's saying there. I'm sure he's pissed just the same way as you guys are pissed. And it's not like I'm not out here saying that the Nashville Predators need to fire David Poile, but he said that in discussing with the ownership group, right, we say it's 16 people. He mentioned Herb Fritch, but he didn't mention the other 15, that he and Sean Henry have the full support of the ownership group. It would seem that that's the case. So what is the ownership group seeing that the rest of us are not? David Poile has done great things here in Nashville. Nobody disputes this. And we've talked about this before. He gets to make the rules on this, honestly. I mean, the organization, even if they felt that they needed to move on from him post-haste, he's probably going to get to control how he ends up exiting this thing, whether it's at the end of next season or 2 seasons from now, based on how it aligns with John Hynes and his staff's contract extensions. But I just, it's plateaued. How can they not feel that? How can they not feel that? How are we supposed to take them seriously? Am I being too harsh there?
My question is, what would you suggest?
Well, it's a fair way to push back, because I'm sitting here with complaints and not solutions. I don't know what the answer. I mean, the answer would be for UC Saros to not get hurt and to Philip Forsberg to show up in 3 playoff games before Game 4, and for somebody other than Matt Duchene to pull their weight in the postseason. Because I mean, the roster we've talked about the top heavy nature of what they have. Right? They are top heavy. They didn't get near the contributions from the other lines that they needed to be a more complete hockey team. And what we saw is that when you put them against a more complete hockey team that has considerably better depth than you do, yeah, they're gonna run circles around you. They're gonna literally sweep you in 4 games and run you off the ice. Now, again, what happened to Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg and, Ellie Tolvanen and how many different players can you go down the list on other than Matt Duchene in this playoff series and say, it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. Because I think Lucas made this point earlier off the air. If you put in front of people, in front of executives across the league, the Nashville Predators roster, at bare minimum, the star power is gonna be enough to say, okay, yeah, we can do something with this. Well, then why weren't they able to do something with this? And I'm not smart enough to know the intricacies of, for example, the system that John Hynes runs. I can't give you the analysis that way, the way that I can do it for you on the Titans. It's not my area of expertise. That's why we bring people on to talk about the things that happen with John Hynes and the Predators so that we can give you the most full picture other than, me being left wanting more out of a press conference from them and from a playoff series from them and basically the last month of the season from them. But I think, what kind of message does it send to you? 615-737-1045 if you'd like to react from the comments that you just heard from John Hynes. And, I guess we didn't hear from John Hynes. We heard from David Poile there on the air, 615-737-1045. What message does it send to you as a sports fan, whether you're a diehard Preds fan or not, about the hockey team's direction? Because it leaves me feeling hugely uninspired while also admitting that I don't have a better solution for them right now. Do you? Is it what? Since you're asking me the question, do you? Is there something that's evident to you that I'm missing in all this? Because I want to be fair. I want to be fair. They deserve that much. John Hynes has done well to keep them on the rails. David Poile is a legend, no matter how you feel about him today. What am I missing here that I should be seeing that may not be obvious to somebody who follows it casually the way that I specifically do?
I do agree that there seems to be a little too much of pointing to the past, right? About their accomplishments over the last few years, about making the playoffs in 8 consecutive seasons.
Don't care.
The 7 straight seasons you made the playoffs before this season do not matter for the future of this franchise. It's obviously a good accomplishment. There's not a lot of teams in the league that can say that right now. I think there's only one other that can say that right now. But it doesn't matter for the future of this team. It's about depth, and it's about players that were supposed to provide that depth this year that just didn't. And I think David Poile called them out in his press conference. He called out Ellie Tolvanen. He talked about Luke Cunnin simply not playing up to the performance that was expected of them this year. But the point that I made to you today, the foundation of an all-star goaltender, Vezina finalist in Saros, probable Norris Trophy winner in Josi, 2 40-plus goal scorers, assuming you're able to keep Forsberg, which is obviously not a sure thing. The highest-scoring rookie in hockey this past year in Tanner Jeannot. That is a foundation that several GMs around the league will take and say, I can build a contender out of this. David Poile believes he can build a contender out of this. It certainly did not take this year. He's going to have to improve the depth of this team, and he clearly believes John Hynes is the guy to help do that.
What evidence there? So I guess my question, and we'll talk about this coming up next, your phone calls as well, because what my biggest question is, what evidence is there that John Hynes, other than sustaining, can help them get over the top? We'll talk about that next.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
Okay, we got Jimbo and Nikki throwing shots at one another. We got John Hynes and David Poile running it back. Let's talk about it. 615-737-1045. Ron in Ashland City leads us off on what he just heard from the Nashville Predators general manager and coach. Hello, Ron.
Hey, how's it going, guys? So I actually didn't hear much of the interview, but I'm somebody that thought bringing John Hynes and David Poile back at least one more year was really the right choice, because look at how young some of these guys were on the roster. A lot of those guys hadn't ever played a full NHL season. The AHL is so much of a shorter season. These guys haven't played 82, 86 games going into the playoffs. So that's why they ran out of gas at the end there. And I think running it back with this young roster, I mean, look at what John Hynes did. They were supposed to be one of the worst teams in the Central. Preseason, nobody would have said, Matt Duchene and Philip Forsberg are going to score 40 goals. Nobody would have said any of that stuff was going to happen. So John Hynes, I believe, had a part in that. Give him one more year. If they still plateau, then kick the bucket and see if we can, maybe get a Nathan McKinnon in the draft or something like that by rebuilding for a few years. I'll hang up and let you guys talk about it.
Thanks for the call, Ron. 615-737-1045. So he brings up the idea of running out of gas. And we talked about top heavy, right? Duchene, Forsberg, 40-plus goals. UC Saros, most starts by an NHL goaltender by a lot. Roman Josi shouldering a lot of the burden throughout the course of the year and having a historically great regular season. And then what happens when you get to the postseason? Right? It was all for naught. Now, those records will stand, and Philip Forsberg will still be the all-time leading scorer in the history of the franchise, and, potentially can build on that depending on how his contract's. What do we think this means for Philip Forsberg, by the way? Because I'm almost inclined to think that it gives him a better chance of coming back under Hynes and Poile, which I think would soften the blow for a lot of people who are up in arms about the idea that Poile and Hynes are coming back in the first place. Philip Forsberg has a lot of sweat equity in this franchise and is one of their best players. I do like the idea that there is a lot of youth on this roster that needs time, but the idea that they're victims of their own success, which is kind of the way that Ron painted it, right? You have preseason expectations of 0. Then you find ways to becoming a fun and high-scoring hockey team. Your power play issues are corrected. Yeah, sometimes you do struggle in front of the net, and you're giving up more. You're giving up 7 goals in a period from time to time or something like that, and that happened more later in the season, right? Which would give credence to the idea that they may have just been gassed up top. To paint them as victims of their own success, though, because they exceeded expectations, made the playoffs for an 8th year. When you looked at them prior to the season beginning and just kind of like, okay, we'll see what they can do. Signs of life. Oh, fun. Okay, we'll take that. Not good enough to legitimately push anybody in the Central Division for anything above the first wild card spot, which they ended up missing out on and ended up in as the last team in the Western Conference, having to face the Colorado Avalanche. I don't like that as an excuse, right? Because you did so well to exceed expectations, but when the expectations matter most, when you've done that work and put in that effort to get to the place where we're looking at you and saying, yeah, okay, now show us something. Show us just something. One game in that playoff series. We talked about this yesterday. Lucas, you still have that audio I asked you to pull from Alex a couple of days ago? I don't know if that's on hand. If you can pull it, fine. If not, I can make the point myself because I do, I thought Alex Doherty summarized it really, really well. The Preds writer from A-to-Z Sports. 1 win against the Colorado Avalanche. Game 2, right? When you had all of the opportunities in the world. You just needed something besides Connor Ingram putting on one of the greatest performances that we've seen from a Preds goaltender, period. Full stop. The way that Alex summarized this, I think this was the day of Game 4. This was Monday before they ended up getting swept. This was Alex Doherty on the radio show.
Exactly what I was going to say. A sweep, that changes things. That changes mindsets, right? It changes a fan base. If your fan base, which, by the way, has started to, some of the shine has come off of it in terms of, you don't see quite as many gold jerseys downtown as you did.
It's the least amount of playoff hype around a Preds series that I have felt in 7 years here.
If you see that continue, and then you have you get swept, and I think this is the straw here. If Philip Forsberg's not re-signed, if they get swept, Philip Forsberg walks. I could see it then. I could see a non-mutual parting.
It's always mutual. It's always mutual. But I think so now, it doesn't matter whether Forsberg comes back or not. Those guys are keeping their jobs, right? Like they're not gonna get rid of they're not gonna get rid of David Poile if he doesn't re-sign Philip Forsberg. This is all but set in stone with the 2-year contract that David Poile is giving to the coach and his staff, which then would keep David Poile, in theory, tied to the coach and his staff for those 2 years, this coming season and the following. The Philip Forsberg thing is the next domino to fall.
And he has to have all the leverage.
Hell yes, he does.
Good luck. Good luck building a Stanley Cup contender without me, with this current core.
Well, because if not, it's Duchesne and Yossi, but it's not good business to doubt Roman Yossi, and I don't think that they're just because I was underwhelmed by him in the playoffs. I think the fatigue element of it, I think that's fair, and we don't know what goes on with these guys physically throughout the course of the year, and that can be the case for any professional sport, any professional athlete. After the grind of an 82-game regular season, and you get to the playoffs, and you're just not good enough. You're just not good enough. But my contention would be, if they can't re-sign Philip Forsberg, you gotta blow it up, right? You gotta legitimately think about selling off parts, because you're not going to have a higher value assigned to Matt Duchesne or Roman Yossi or some of the younger parts that you may feel are promising, but may not, may be the thing that can help you jumpstart this.
And Poile suggested that wouldn't be the case if they were hypothetically not to get a deal done, that it wouldn't be a complete rebuild. But at that point, you're stuck in mediocrity. If you lose the highest scoring player in franchise history, the highest scoring single season player in franchise history, I just don't see it.
It's got to happen at some point, right? Sports are cyclical this way. The Titans are just coming out of this, right? Here in the last, not just, they've been doing it over the course of the past couple seasons, but that's damn near 15 years of just bleh, of throwing up on themselves.
That's why you have a 2-year extension for John Hynes, not a 4-year extension for John Hynes.
Or I saw people throwing out their 6 years, which is asinine.
No, 2 years.
I'm curious. I'm less than inspired, but I'm curious about how they manage this thing moving forward. And yeah, if you're Philip Forsberg, man, you got all the cards and then some. What'd you make of the competitive rebuild thing? Because he brought that back. David Poile did. It almost felt like he was talking to us. Now, I've got a big ego, but I don't think that I have near enough ego to think that David Poile has heard my complaints about the phrase competitive rebuild, even though I find it, even as I understand it in concept, I find the phrase detestable.
It doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you. Like, if you understand it in concept, then why does it invoke such a reaction from you?
Because you don't say it. You don't say it, right? Like, we've normalized this idea, and this has happened over the past couple of years. It's happening in football right now, and I think that's where I'm kind of getting this. What do you? I don't know what the proper phrase is. Burr in my saddle, whatever. It sounds like something somebody 100 years old would say. But I think that's why this is sticking with me so badly, because I watched Tom Telesco, the general manager of the Los Angeles Chargers, talk about the draft as if it was just I don't know, like we had a couple NFL general managers ahead of the draft get up there and say, kind of a crapshoot. We have no idea really. We do our homework and we do the best job that we can with this, and then you have no idea how these guys' careers are going to play out. But we'll see how it goes. Don't say that to me.
The fan, you mean?
Yeah. Don't say that to me. I don't want to hear that.
See, I don't think they care. I don't think David Poyle cares. To his credit, David Poyle's always kind of been up front, and he'll frame things the way that it plays out in his mind. And I don't think he cares if a fan sits there and says, I don't like that phrase. I understand
if he got
it in
the
concept.
results, it'd be different. They're chasing ghosts. This competitive rebuild thing, what evidence do I have that it's worked since 2017 or since they started giving out contracts to that core? To, the Ryan Ellises of the world and Victor Arvidsson and Matt Duchene as a piece to try and help it get back to the heights that it reached, and Ryan Johansson, all these different things that happened that did not work. I get it in principle. If you continue to cite it after not having the results that you claim this is in an effort towards, I'm sorry. I don't want to hear that from you.
But I feel like we're just getting into semantics. If you'd rather him say a retooling of the roster, right? Or depth reconstruction. Like, we're just talking about semantics that all means the same thing.
I guess my issue is that I don't like how we're normalizing this kind of, this is our plan, it may or may not work type of attitude, mentality. I can understand what David Poyle is saying and take him to mean it at his core, that he is not satisfied with what has happened. I believe that. He's a competitive person. You have to be to operate in these spaces for as long as people like David Poyle have. Not many people last the way that David Poyle has, right? So he understands this at a greater level than I do. I am completely acknowledging that, while at the same time saying that fan bases don't care about this. I can't do this with the Titans because I don't pay to go to their games. I don't have this, and Mike and John don't talk this way, right? They're not, when we brought up the idea of, I don't remember how it was exactly phrased when they drafted Malik, but like the idea of, okay, this is a future move. This is a raw developmental thing that is going to exist on the roster and may not give you anything that really helps you win a Super Bowl this year. I don't remember how it was phrased or presented to them, but I mean, it was basically like, yeah, our goal is to still win the Super Bowl this year, right? As it is every year. That's what our efforts are always towards. David Poyle is not saying that their efforts are not to win the Stanley Cup every year that they set out on a new season, but to put it in front of people, what are we talking about? 5 years almost after the fact of the 2017 run? To continue to cite that and not have the results on the back end, I'm sorry, people just don't want to hear that anymore. It's a PR. My issue is a PR one, right? It's how they're presenting it to people, because you can do this any number of ways. In the same way, Lucas, that you said, what's the answer to the on ice product? I can't give you that answer. What I can tell you is, in the same way that it was probably in Ryan Tannehill's best interest not to say anything about mentorship or not mentorship about Malik Willis, it is not in David Poyle's best interest at this point, with the people who are spending money to go to his team's games, to cite competitive rebuild with a first-round sweep being the most recent result.
Well, John Hynes has directly addressed issues on the ice as Alex Doherty continues to tweet out updates.
Or you have something that you would like to cite, or you just want to send people to Alex Doherty? You're gonna send people away from the radio show to Alex's Twitter feed, or are you gonna give them something?
You didn't let me finish.
Well, you stopped.
Talked about adding talent to the team, particularly at forward. Need more, quote, punch in the top six. Added that the team did not have that identity in the playoffs. They want to be aggressive. They want to have more time in the offensive zone. They want to play a more fast and attacking style. So they need to add some more depth to be able to do that outside of Matt Duchene, Philip Forsberg, Ryan Johansson.
Right. So, okay. So I don't need a PhD in hockey to be able to tell you that they're thin, that they're super thin. Same concerns I have about the Titans offensive line I have about the Preds roster, right? That they're perilously thin. That what they hope to achieve is not sustainable based on the current construction of, in the case of the Titans, one specific position group, and in the case of the Preds, basically everything beyond the top line. 615-737-1045 is how you can react to that. Meanwhile, Jimbo Fisher's press conference still has Rome burning.
That's all the chats talk about.
I think this is interesting because now Deion Sanders is in the fray, right? And Deion Sanders has outright called Nick Saban a liar.
Which I had to text you a screenshot of.
So you had to text me a screenshot of what Deion Sanders is saying on social media. First of all, why don't you tell people why Deion Sanders is out there in the mix on all of this, just to give the audience the proper frame of reference?
Well, obviously, the headline that was taken away from Nick Saban was what he said about Texas A&M. He also alluded to Jackson State paying $1 million to attract Travis Hunter, who we remember, the number 1 overall recruit in this past recruiting cycle, famously flipped from FSU to Jackson State, and he is currently on campus at Jackson State. Deion Sanders took to Twitter yesterday, late last night, said, "You best believe I will address that lie," in all caps, Coach Saban told Tomorrow. "I was awakened by my son that sent me the article stating that we paid Travis Hunter $1 million to play at Jackson State. We as a people don't have to pay our people to play with our people."
What the hell does that last part mean, do you think? I mean, I guess it's self-explanatory. He laid it out. Jackson, Travis Hunter? Travis Hunter has taken to social media himself. He said, "If I have $1 million, why is my mom living in a 3-bedroom house with 5 children?" Which is a fair assessment. Nobody is going to push back on that logic. Now,
and Deion quoted that, said, "I don't even make $1 million."
Now, you had to send me the screenshot of Deion Sanders' tweet. Do you know why?
Why don't you tell the folks?
I'm blocked by Deion Sanders. I think a great many people in Nashville are blocked by Deion Sanders and may not realize that they're blocked. I didn't know.
What'd you do?
Do you remember? I mean, this was a long time ago. The Kevin Byard thing, where Deion Sanders didn't know who Kevin Byard was and called him just a fan.
He said, what'd he say? "You stay a fan and I'll stay the man." Something along those lines.
Something to that effect, yes. And so I was one of the people. Now, this was before, not that I'm anybody now, but this was when I was much less somebody, working overnights, midnight to 6 a.m., and firing off messages on social media more recklessly than I do now because more people are watching me now or following me now. But I went at Prime a little bit, and his response was to block me. That was like 5 years ago. And apparently I am still blocked by Deion Sanders, so I cannot see these messages. I'm sure a great many people are still blocked by Deion Sanders that don't realize that after they went at him for not knowing who the hell, at the time, all-pro safety Kevin Byard was. Well, no, I don't think he had achieved all-pro at that point. I think he was just Pro Bowl safety Kevin Byard. D. Good on YouTube says, "What a coward." I mean, I don't know. Listen, I don't block people. I don't block people on social media. People have different approaches. Do you block people?
I have never blocked someone. I've muted 1 or 2 people.
I did block one person, but I have never, I don't do it anymore because I would prefer for idiots to shout into the darkness on the internet and not have me respond, but still see that I have not blocked them. I'd rather them just scream into the ether for nobody to hear them. And for me to go about my day. Muting is a far more effective tactic. It's a far more spiteful tactic.
Agreed.
If I didn't want to get at them some way by not getting at them at all, by just not acknowledging their existence, then I would block them. But I want them to hurt a little bit. I do.
It's the best way to do it. Because if someone's trying to get to you and then they see that you blocked them, for them it's probably like mission accomplished, right?
Yes. Yes, mission accomplished. Blocking gives them the satisfaction.
Right.
Muting makes them think that, oh no, I don't care about you, because I don't. 615-737-1045. You can jump in. We have another person to tear down, since Nick Saban is tearing down Jimbo Fisher, since Preds Twitter is tearing down the entire organization at this point. I would like to publicly, privately, and everywhere in between, take out my 1045 The Zone teammate, Ron Slay. I'll do that next. Okay. So, since shots are being fired across, it seems every sport right now, Nick Saban giving me the pageant wave on my television because they're running Jimbo Fisher's comments and Nick Saban's comments on the NIL rights battle that's being waged in the SEC right now. I would like to take some shots at a teammate of my own, Ron Slay. He was on the radio show yesterday, talked some basketball. Mostly, he did a little pop culture with Slay too yesterday. It was a good time. And of course, 3HL 3 to 6, where you can hear Slay for 3 hours a day with his incredible co-hosts, Dawn Davenport and Brent Doherty. Now, Slay threw out the first pitch, was scheduled to throw out the first pitch at First Horizon Park yesterday, do a sounds game. I have been approached about the opportunity of doing this same thing, which I'm grateful for. That would be a lot of fun to do that. But unfortunately, my weeknights conflict with the A to Z Sports Show. So I'm not typically available to do those kind of things. So I don't know if Slay is got my opportunity to throw out the first pitch, but he rewarded us with content because it was well documented by everybody who attended and Zone listeners who went to either publicly shame or celebrate Ron Slay's efforts. So Slay was on the radio show yesterday, and he was ready to go, right? He compared himself to many Major League Baseball greats. He had been practicing his flamingo stance, as he called it, his pitching stance, which he compared to a flamingo, which is probably why the pitch looked the way that it did, because he stood like a flamingo on the mound. Let me hear from Ron Slay in all of his glory, telling us that he was not going to just throw out a first pitch yesterday, but a first strike.
Get back. Yeah. Let me tell you this, man.
Get back in his sight
That's
lines.
right. This is what I want on your updates from now on. We got Ron Slay with the Nashville Sounds today throwing out the first
pitch.
That's where you're wrong. And that's where your whole show can go downhill if you leave it up to him. Because what I'm doing is I'm throwing out the first strike.
Oh!
I'm throwing out the first strike. That's what I'm doing. So, okay, let's get this party started. I just want y'all to know that.
How'd that go? How'd that go for him? What did we see the videos on social media?
We did.
He one-hopped it in front of Booster, who was there to catch his first pitch. It did not reach Booster. Slay made the critical error that many people before him and many people after him will make in the art of throwing out the first pitch, is he aimed low. He threw it low. He threw it down towards Booster. What you don't realize, and I can't say that I've done this a ton myself, but in the inevitability that I do it once, I don't want to embarrass myself the way that Ron Slay did yesterday. He tried to throw somebody out at second base. Did you see that?
No,
or at first base before he threw out the pitch. he faked him out like he was going to throw an invisible person out at first base, and then he one-hopped it.
I wish you would have made a throw to first.
There was nobody there to catch it. There was nobody there. It's just people out there trying to get the field ready for the actual professional baseball players to play a game, and Ron Slay acting a fool out there on the mound. So he throws this first pitch. It lands in the dirt in front of the mascot. The mascot looks at him in disgust. There is an audible. Now, admittedly, not a lot of people there early. It's early before a minor league baseball game. I'm not criticizing. I'm not saying that's an indictment of Slay. I'm not saying that's an indictment of the Sounds. I'm just saying it was early. So there wasn't a ton of people in the stands. But audible is the sound from the fans who were in the stands. Just, oh. when he threw the first pitch and hit the dirt. Brandon Rushing on YouTube. You can interact with the show via Zone TV if you would prefer to, as opposed to calling. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Brandon Rushing says, better than Steve Aoki. Goodness. Now, I haven't seen Steve Aoki's first pitch. I've seen the 50 Cent first pitch, which is, I think, so there's two people who are regarded as two of the worst first pitches that we've seen. 50 Cent and Tony Fauci, Dr. Fauci, who I think threw out a first pitch at a Nats game and had a similar result to 50 Cent. Now,
Aoki's just went straight up.
What?
He threw it straight up.
Like vertical?
Like 20 feet over the catcher. Like the upward trajectory.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you and Robert are watching it back there? So let's put it on the poll. Worst first pitch ever. Steve Aoki, Tony Fauci, 50 Cent, Ron Slay. Let's do it that way. At Buck Reising is where you can vote on the polls. Lucas will update them at the end of the show. There was a news item yesterday regarding Derrick Henry and a potential contract extension that is being considered by the Tennessee Titans. We're going to get into some of the details on that, and I'm going to tell you why that would be the wrong decision. Coming up next.
It is 11:59. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Nashville Predators are running it back. Preds general manager David Poile and head coach John Hynes met with the media together for the first time since suffering a first-round sweep at the hands of the Colorado Avalanche. Poile announced John Hynes has agreed to a 2-year extension as the head coach of the Nashville Predators. Also added that they are still working on a deal for forward Philip Forsberg, who is a free agent. Nick Saban addressed Texas A&M's recruiting class yesterday, saying that A&M paid for each and every player in their quest to the number 1 rated recruiting class in college football history. Jimbo Fisher had a response today in a press conference and came out hot.
Some people think they're God. Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past or anybody that's ever coached with him. You can find out anything you want to find out.
Strong words. Changes are coming in the NCAA. The Division I Council announced on Wednesday it is waiving scholarship limits for football. Previously, schools were limited to 25 scholarships per year. It also eliminated requirements for conference championship games, allowing conferences to determine how teams reach their respective championship game. The Pac-12 quickly announced it'll do away with divisions and that teams with the highest win percentage in the conference will play for the title starting in 2022. We'll see how many conferences follow suit. It is day 1 of the PGA Championship from Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa. Rory McIlroy atop the leaderboard by 2 strokes at 5 under through 12. Tiger Woods currently at 1 over. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
.104.5 The Zone. On this Thursday, hope you're having a tremendous day so far. I know we are. Having a lot of fun. Lucas lied to you in his sports update.
I knew you were going to do this. I knew you were going to do this. I didn't lie.
You're a liar.
There are no lies.
You lied to people from my Twitter account today when you said that Derrick Henry had 1 year left on his deal. Instead, he has 2. You lied to people at the top of the hour when you said you had the latest in breaking news.
My phone buzzes with the Titans preseason schedule the moment I finish the update.
Sucks to suck. So, yeah, we have news. I'll give it to you instead of Lucas. I don't know why that delights me the way that it does. There's no reason for it. It's just, I'm literally going to say it a minute later than you do. Not even 10 seconds later than you do.
It's because it irks me. That's why it delights you, which I understand.
Yeah, I mean, the whole premises of the show is how can everybody come together collectively to piss me off, and then we make content out of that.
Very healthy work environment.
Thank you. My doctor thanks you for my blood pressure issues. Thank you very much. At 28 years old, got the blood pressure of a 60-year-old. Anyway, so yeah, we have a little bit of news. Do you want to play the breaking news sound? Do you want to do it?
Oh, breaking Titans news on 104.5 The Zone.
I want to make our own version of those, by the way. The same way that we have the opens. I just want to get rid of that guy altogether. We have preseason dates, official dates and times for the Titans. So Thursday, August the 11th, they open up their preseason schedule at Baltimore. It's a 6:30 p.m. Central Time kick. You've got two Saturday preseason games here in Nashville, hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and hosting the Arizona Cardinals. Both of those two teams expected to take place or to participate in preseason, in joint training camp practices, as Mike Vrabel outlined at the owners' meeting. So yeah, keep an eye on that. There. I got the breaking news before Lucas did. Makes me very happy. Let's talk about the thing that I discussed earlier with, or I guess that would have been yesterday, with Jeremy Fowler's reporting. He does like these kind of notebook articles for ESPN where he just details a whole lot of different information, bits and pieces of news that he's hearing across the league. And what he mentioned yesterday was a pretty, an interesting note, not because it's something actual concrete, just something that's being considered right now by the Tennessee Titans. And what's currently being considered by the Tennessee Titans, or rather, as Jeremy Fowler stated, what they are open to is a potential extension for Derrick Henry on his current deal. Now, Derrick's current deal keeps him under contract for this coming season and for 2023. The cap hit is $15 million this year and $15.5 million next year. It is interesting because of the idea that it's completely unnecessary. It's not necessary at all. The Tennessee Titans benefit none from extending Derrick. Now, that's not a emotional, that's obviously not an emotional decision. It would be received well by the fans if Derrick Henry is kept under contract here as long as humanly possible, depending on the price point, because people love him, rightfully so. You should love Derrick Henry. He's been the greatest asset that your football team has had in the last 4 seasons. And maybe we'll say 3.5 seasons just because Derrick wasn't available for half of last year. But this is the exact blurb on contract deals that have yet to be done across the league. And there's a great many names that are mentioned. But under the wild card section, there are 5 names. Baker Mayfield, it just says a Buffalo Bills player to be named later because there's 3 who are going to be unrestricted free agents after 2023. Tremaine Edmonds, the linebacker, tight end Dawson Knox, who, of course, Nashville people know, and safety Jordan Poyer. Hunter Renfrow, Elgton Jenkins, the offensive lineman for the Packers, and then Derrick Henry. What Jeremy Fowler writes of Derrick Henry, he has 2 years left on his current contract, and running backs typically don't get paid early, but I'm hearing the Titans are at least open to a possible new deal with Henry. Henry has salaries of has a cap hit of $15 million in 2022 and $15.5 million in 2023. The Titans could lessen those 2 cap hits by extending him by a year or 2, and they could build in escape hatches if Henry declines in his 30s. But right now, Derrick Henry is still considered the top running back in the game. So, how are we to receive this? Because my initial reaction was, oh, okay. If they can do it cost effectively, you can still find ways to use Derrick, even if at whatever point it happens, not saying it's this year, not saying it's next year, not saying it's the next 5 years, but whenever Derrick Henry ceases to be special, right? Because it's coming. It comes for all of them. It came for Peyton Manning, where he's a corpse out there being carried by an incredible Broncos defense to a Super Bowl title. It happened, well, it hadn't happened to Tom Brady. Tom Brady's the one exception to the rule. It happens to literally everybody but Tom Brady at this point. And running backs in particular are more prone to this because of just how physical and violent the nature of their job is. Then I had some time to think about it last night because immediately the YouTube chat starts up, Derrick Henry the King will always be special. It's a PR win. If Derrick Henry retires a Titan, people will love John Robinson and Mike Vrabel forever for it because Derrick Henry means something to Titans fans in a way that probably, there's not another player on the roster that means, that has the place in Titans fans' hearts the way that Derrick Henry does, right? Jeff Simmons may have that as he gets further in his career. A.J. Brown could have had that.
Kevin Byard's close to me.
I think not to take anything away from Kevin, but I think it's the nature of position that they play, safety versus really any offensive player that scores touchdowns, right? Because Kevin can make interceptions, he can get pick sixes, and he can do that, but you're going to gravitate more towards the offensive scoring, the big play highlights. You're not seeing highlights of a safety on SportsCenter.
The local aspect of Kevin's background too helps.
Sure. He's on the medal stand, right? If you're going to do top 3 Titans,
Mount Rushmore.
Oh God. I set myself up for that. I can't even get mad at you for saying that. No. We're over a year into this radio show without having done a Mount Rushmore. I refuse. You cannot make me under any circumstance.
Yeah,
Now,
I rebuke that in the name of Jesus.
Thank you, Caleb Farley. We are aligned in this regard. No Mount Rushmores. Ever. Ever. Now, everybody else can do it. I don't have a problem with anybody else doing it. I won't do it. You can't make me. Until June. But, yeah, you're right. Middle Tennessee, Kevin Byard, third-round pick, local pro. Like, they have the local day for the prospects, like Theo Jackson, and Kevin Byard turns out to be an all-pro caliber player. People love Kevin. I'm not saying Kevin is any less beloved. I'm just saying that Derrick Henry is on a tier unto himself, right? But when I had the opportunity to think about this a little more, it just doesn't make sense to me to do it. You could lower his cap hit this year. Here's why it makes sense. If you extend Derrick before the season, this season, you can lower his cap hit for 2022. You could find money to pay other players. You could do contracts that may be waiting in the wings. As we know, there's a great many of them that are coming up this year. Jeff Simmons has a fifth-year option, so you can buy yourself a little time. But the rest of that very special 2019 draft class is in a contract year. David Long, Amani Hooker, Nate Davis, A.J. Brown's no longer here, obviously. So there are some critical players in starting roles that they'll have to make financial decisions on soon. But he doesn't have any guaranteed money left on his deal. And giving him additional guaranteed money, going to be 29, significant foot injury. There's no leverage there, because I saw Mike Miracles make this argument as well. That doesn't seem like a good business strategy to me. Derrick is more than fairly compensated for his position, for his star power, for what they make back on Derrick in marketing and in ticket sales. Derrick Henry is a well-compensated running back. But there is no need other than emotional attachment. And, I guess if you're trying to pull off a trade that would require substantial cap money as opposed to, going out and paying Will Fuller pennies on the dollar as you try and scrounge up additional wide receiver or maybe offensive line depth. Like, outside of that, I don't see a reason to do it. If you do, I'd be happy to hear from you. 615-737-1045 is the number. Do you believe it to be a good or bad business decision? The idea of potentially extending Derrick Henry with 2 years left on his deal. David Ubben is also going to be here, and we'll get back into the Jimbo Fisher versus Nick Saban conversation with David, who covers the SEC as a whole for theathletic.com. A lot to get to coming up next. Buddy Allen Carpet One is where you go for your next home renovation. Whether you are looking to renovate your bathroom, whether you're somebody like me who needs to go from carpet in their bedroom to hardwood because you got pets and your pets have torn the holy hell out of your carpet, Buddy Allen Carpet One is where you can go for a full-service flooring operation. Now, that does not mean that it's going to cost you more money to go to Buddy Allen Carpet One. In fact, that's what's made them so proud of the way that they've done business and created an exceptional environment for their customers. That's the way they've been doing it for 55 years. To find value for you in your next home renovation project. It's a full-service flooring company that guarantees their work with certified installers and helps you save money at the same time. It's the best of both worlds, and it can only be found at Buddy Allen Carpet One, 2405 Lebanon Pike in Donaldson, or online at BuddyAllenCarpet1.com. Welcome back. Radio show is always presented by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Visit springhillac.com. Not just the radio show, all the great interviews that we do, the podcast, hell, all of it. Even Jimbo Fisher versus Nick Saban, presented by springhillac.com today. Fortunate that we had David Ubben of The Athletic scheduled to appear this morning, or rather this afternoon. It was a much just content falling into our laps, David. I hope you are enjoying this as much as we have this morning.
Well, it's May 19th, and it's usually the slowest part of the year, and we've been going nonstop for the last couple hours. So what a day, man. What a day.
What a day indeed. So let's take this piece by piece, break it down Zapruder film style. When you saw Nick Saban, I think Max Olson, your colleague, tweeted out the clip from the Birmingham business leaders function that he was speaking at yesterday. When you saw Nick Saban just come out and say, yeah, A&M bought all of their players last year. We didn't buy one. What was your initial reaction?
I don't like the tone, quite frankly. I think that people buy into this idea that is inherently wrong, or even what Jimbo was referring to is that the allegation was that he's cheating. I don't think that anywhere Saban said it was explicitly cheating, and all of their stuff did adhere to the rules. And did have guys get some pretty good deals. And if there's quid pro quo, none of that violates state law. None of that violates the NCAA's interim policy. It gets people frustrated. It gets people saying that they can think it's a recruiting inducement. But, I think people get locked up in, hey, the rules governing NCAA and college football are inherently immoral. Breaking them is not the immoral act. And I think that I just don't like the demonization or the acting like paying players is a pejorative. I really take offense to that. And that's what stuck out to me is that, hey, like, why are we acting like this is a bad thing? It's not a bad thing. Like, get out of the tunnel vision college football and look at society and the world and all those things. This should not be something that people act like is bad.
He's been doing kind of that for a while now, though, David. And Nick Saban is who he is, right? And so anytime he speaks, it is incumbent upon the college football world and, frankly, the sports world to at least hear what he has to say, because it's not like he's not going about this as a hugely calculated individual. He's been on this for a while, and I do get some of the points that he's trying to make as far as what this is going to erode. But all it is, from my standpoint, is an overcorrection for the wrongs that college football has been profiting off of for many, many years. And by the way, still not paying the players. The players aren't making television money off of the contracts that the SEC network. They're outsourcing the money to car dealerships and iced tea companies and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think ultimately, it's just the NCAA, and when we say the NCAA, that means the member schools, not the office in Indianapolis, which is not this sort of ivory tower. The NCAA is the schools. If the schools want to change rules, they can change them by voting them. You propose a rule, you can vote it. You can do that anytime you want. So they have sat on their hands for 20 years. You could have done this in a more orderly way. It was moving in this direction for a long time. NIL was going to be a when, not if equation. And they've done nothing. And now it happened overnight, and you have this sort of chaos. And the one complaint from coaches that I think is very fair is no one seems to understand or know what the rules are or are not. And that's when you get into the sticky territory of what is a recruiting inducement and what is not, and how much verbal gymnastics and contractual gymnastics can you do to make it not a recruiting inducement when it probably is a recruiting inducement. And that is where coaches are torn because they don't know, certainly some of what the collectives are doing, I don't disagree. It violates the spirit of what NIL was. But NIL, as it was conceived, like you mentioned, is peanuts to what players should be earning. So I kind of look at it as sort of a societal view of like, well, you guys are still keeping the real money away from it. You've accidentally backed yourself into a pay-for-play situation because of your sort of backwards legislation. And you may not like it, but I think in general, this is a moral thing. This is good for society. It is wealth redistribution. You're no longer robbing players of money that they should have had decades ago So I have a hard time getting real out of sorts when people are like, oh, we can't be buying players. Yes, you can. And the amount, I can guarantee anybody listening to this, maybe there's some of you out there, but I bet you that you or I or many other people have not earned for our companies what Bryce Young has earned for Alabama football. And people act like it's a bad thing that these guys want to get money is insane, and it is, quite frankly, un-American.
David Ubben of The Athletic here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We're discussing the current situation around Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban, and the comments made today that has created, great controversy on May the 19th in college football. Look at college football out here making headlines in May. What did you make of, before we move to Jimbo in all of this, David, just the phrasing that Saban used is the thing that I think irked me the most. The idea of buying players. I know that's common language in like Premier League soccer and international soccer and things like that. Maybe I'm too much harping on how that hit me, but I'm already kind of on guard against that when we go through the whole NFL draft process as somebody who covers the NFL, and it's basically a combination of a beauty pageant and a livestock show. I don't like the idea of Nick Saban being comfortable talking about, or anybody talking about, the buying of high school kids.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. Even when I was spending some time with the Spire guys, when I was writing that story about them back in February, which feels like 5 years ago now, they were even saying, well, it's not buying players. We tell them what their opportunities are. And, I'm thinking, well, I just don't see anything wrong with quote unquote buying players. People want to use it as a pejorative. It is letting players earn money on their value.
Yeah. Somebody
wants to pay you something. There's no reason, there's no law, there's no compelling case for why you should not be allowed to do that. We've seen that obviously in the Supreme Court. I think you can feel it. I think college football has been operating for one way for a long time and has talked a lot of people into the idea that this is the right way to do things, that players should play for, and I'm going to try not to laugh as I say this, the love of the game, and not for money. I don't see a lot of coaches coaching for the love of the game. I don't know about you guys. Nick Saban, he does a great job, but, I'm sure he loves the game. He might love it a little less if it didn't pay him $10 million a year. So I just, the pejorative of buying players and all this stuff and pay for play, which is a term that's built around crime and not, being compensated for your labor, which is the fundamental element of like capitalism and how American society operates. I just think that so much of this like warped morality is so baked into college football and the fan base of every team and all these things that these guys are not doing anything wrong. I still, these rules are bad. They need to make the rules less bad and stop villainizing people who, quote unquote, find loopholes in bad rules to allow players to earn their market value. It's insane to me.
I love the way that you've put that in context for the audience, David, just because it is so, I mean, we've had such a harsh reaction to it, and you I'm sure deal with this a lot more than we do, just having a talk show around local sports more than anything, and my primary place being with NFL coverage. But just the way that people have had such a harsh reaction to it because of the way that it has been baked in generationally, and all of a sudden the Supreme Court, the highest court in our country, unanimously, and if anybody is paying attention to anything that's happening in the Supreme Court right now, you understand just how difficult it is to get a unanimous vote on anything. That they are telling college football fans and people who have operated in this space, whether they're just kind of head in the clouds type of deal or whether they're turning a blind eye to it actively, that this stuff needed to change a long time ago. Even now, though, it's just come to this screeching halt where we're changing things up in real time. Do you think this is something that's just going to have to evolve over time, that people are just going to have to eat it? Because it's not like we're going back to what it was.
I think so. I think people have to recognize, everybody wants to talk about how polarized politically our society is. That there's only one issue, it seems, that Democrats and Republicans can agree on in America, and it's that the entire structure of college sports is entirely messed up. You have Republicans who don't like it because it's restricting the free market. You have, Democrats or liberals who don't like it because it's hurting employee rights. It's not treating people the way they should be treated. Everyone is united on this one issue, and yet there's still a lot of people willing to defend it I don't see a whole lot of other reason other than, well, that's the way it's always been done. Yeah, that is the way it's always been done, and it's always been done in an extremely exploitative way.
David Ubben of The Athletic is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. At David Ubben is where you can get all of the great content that he produces for The Athletic. So much great sports journalism being done there. Well worth your subscription. Let's hear a little bit from Jimbo Fisher, who decided that he wanted to go on the warpath. He instead of sitting back and waiting for October the 8th, he wanted to take it to Nick Saban today.
Some people think they're God. Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past or anybody that's ever coached with him. You can find out anything you want to find out.
It's my greatest professional regret, David, that I did not carry that press conference live on the air today. I said, no, it's okay. We'll get the clips after the fact. It's so stupid what I did today, David.
I was locked in, man. That was appointment viewing for me. It was, man, what a time. It's May 19th, and this has been the spiciest day of the offseason.
So what does he hope to accomplish there, David, by what he did other than blowing off steam? Because, he clearly had to get somebody to say, okay, we'll let you have this emergency press conference. I know Jimbo carries a lot of sway at Texas A&M at College Station. He has the run of the joint, it seems, of the athletic department. But what is the benefit there as you see it? Do you see one from what he had hoped to accomplish today?
I'm not sure. I think one thing, well, for one, I think he felt like they were insinuating that he was cheating, and he took exception to that on a personal level. But on a practical level, I think, he's looking at it, and this is pure speculation on my part, but it's always about recruiting. Everything in college football always comes back to recruiting. And if you have been painted as a cheating program and everybody knows you're cheating, well, the idea is that a reckoning is going to come. You're going to have your eligibility risks, or that money is never going to end up in your actual account. These are false promises, all that stuff. And if you're out there defending your program and saying, no, what we're doing is right, I think that's a way to push back on that idea. So that's kind of my theory. I think certainly, like I mentioned, Jimbo took exception on a personal level, and he referenced that he doesn't cheat, he doesn't lie. But I think on a practical level, I think it's about, hey, this reckoning is not coming.
So with all that being said, David, because obviously, this is leading Sports Center. They interrupted Tiger Woods at the PGA Championship on ESPN, and now like a version of Joe Buck's Manning Cast with Peyton and Eli to talk about what Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher are doing. Is this good for the sport?
Well, that's sort of a complicated question, I think. One, I think the sport has been really bad to the people that have come through the sport for a long time. And you mentioned all the money is in the TV deals, and players still can't touch that. So, is it going to get messy for a few years? Are we going to have player movement that might hurt interest maybe a little bit? That's definitely possible. But I wrote this, a couple weeks ago, and I still stand behind it. You have something that has been a very exploitive enterprise for a long time, and it's a lot more fair, and it's a lot more equitable. It's still not perfect. I still don't like that players don't get to touch any of that TV money. I don't love all the player movement. I'm not crazy about it. I don't think that helps the game. But ultimately, it's a more fair, it's a more equitable enterprise than it was a year ago. And so good for the sport. I think anything that makes something like that is good for it. So, I think good for the sport and that it's no longer quite as exploitative as it used to be. And we'll see, the long-term effects of fan interest. I'm not sure where that's going to go. I think you hear a lot of people talk a lot of big talk. But I think on the field, come fall, if Tennessee is, 5-0 and Alabama comes to town, it's going to look like every other season. And I don't know how much of this stuff is really, when it comes down to it, going to affect fan interest.
It's a completely balanced and nuanced approach from David Ubben, and why you should be reading him at theathletic.com. David, I know you're busy. Thanks for taking some time today.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
That's David Ubben with us on 104.5 The Zone. 615-737-1045 is how you can react to that. Can we play Jimbo's full comments again for people that didn't hear it earlier in the show? Because he came in hot. He came in right out the gate, and he wanted blood. And what Jimbo Fisher hoped to accomplish with doing this, I'm not quite certain. But I know that he wanted a piece of Nick Saban's ass, and he sure as hell got it.
First of all, I'll say it's a shame that we have to do this. It's really despicable. It's despicable that somebody can say things about somebody and an organization. More importantly, 17-year-old kids. You're taking shots at 17-year-old kids and their families. That they broke state laws. That they're all money. We bought every player on this group. We never bought anybody. No rules were broken. Nothing was done wrong. It was all in the way we do things, the ethics in which we do things. And these families, it's despicable that a reputable head coach could come out and say this when he doesn't get his way or things don't go his way. The narcissist in him doesn't allow those things to happen, and it's ridiculous. But when he's not on top, and the parity in college football he's been talking about, go talk to coaches who coach for him. You'll find out all the parity. Go dig into wherever he's been. You can find out anything. And it's a shame that you got to sit here and defend 17-year-old kids and families and Texas A&M because we do things right. We're always going to do things right, but we're always going to be here. We're doing a heck of a job. These coaches have done a great job. Our players have done a great job. The whole organization of recruiting people. It's despicable that we got to sit there at this level of ball and say these things to defend the people of this organization, the kids, 17-year-old kids and their families. It's amazing. Some people think they're God. Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past or anybody that's ever coached with him. You can find out anything you want to find out, what he does and how he does it. And it's despicable. It really is. And it's a shame we have to sit up here and have this conversation about things we do. And it's personal to us? Yes, it is. It's personal to A&M. It's personal to our players. It's personal to our coaches and everybody involved. And I know the guy. Know him really well. It's amazing that we're allowed to do those things. It's really despicable. And I hate it for our players who are coming here, who did things the right way, have done things the right way, and will continue to do things the right way. I apologize to you that people insult you publicly the way they're doing it. And our fans, I apologize to you.
Quickly, Lucas, on the poll at Buck Reising, I think we have like 70 polls at this point. Are you Team Jimbo or Team Saban? Yes or no? Well, no, I guess that's not a yes or no. It's a Team Jimbo or Team Saban. You know how to do it. You'll figure it out.
We'll get to that.
Robert's faint laughter in the background off mic. It's aesthetically great for theater of the mind, but it pisses me off. Makes me very angry. It's not that funny. Back to the shadows. Are you Team Jimbo or are you Team Saban? 615-737-1045. Because I think I'm Team Jimbo. I think I am.
So I disagree with David Ubben, who said Jimbo is pissed off because Nick Saban is insinuating that he cheated on his way to grabbing this recruiting class. Obviously, a very emotional response from Jimbo Fisher. He went for the neck. We've never seen that in college football, at least recently. I don't think Jimbo Fisher is pissed because Saban insinuated he cheated, because Saban did not insinuate that he cheated. Saban didn't insinuate that nefarious activity was going on at Texas A&M. I think Saban is just remarking about the overall state of college football right now and the direction that it's headed and using A&M as an example. I think Jimbo's pissed off because Nick Saban's insinuating Jimbo Fisher only got this recruiting class because of NIL.
Right.
Before NIL was a thing, I was getting all the top recruiting classes when we weren't paying players, which I do think is a laughable idea that Alabama never paid a cent to a prospect to come play football in Tuscaloosa. But I think Jimbo Fisher's pissed because he's saying, hey, man, you're not the only one that can do this.
Well, and Jimbo's done it, right? Jimbo is a national championship winning coach, and he is to be respected as such. Now, he's not won at the rate that Saban has, but, I mean, listen, it is foolish to think that Nick Saban doesn't have the ego of somebody who thinks, yeah, you can't do it the way that I do it. Nobody does it the way that I do it. And you know what? He's right. Like, nobody does it as dominantly as Nick Saban has done it. That doesn't mean that other people can't do it in any given season. Hell, Dabo's screwed himself because we're not even talking about Dabo in the era of name, image, and likeness because he said he threatened to quit if players ever got paid in college football. Like, just an asinine comment by Dabo, even as I appreciate his honesty, because I think we got a raw emotional response from somebody who really doesn't believe in this stuff. And also, you can be a fool for thinking that way, because all it's going to do is tear you down when inevitably we see the kind of market correction that we've seen. And by the way, I think it's an overcorrection. I think it's an overcorrection what we're seeing. Now, I think it's good. I would prefer it to be overcorrected in this direction than as opposed to what was literally unconstitutional under the previous structure. But I would also look at Nick Saban and say, I don't think he's calculated. Saban is smart, and I believe that he thinks about his words before they leave his mouth. But I also think he said it almost casually in the way that I don't think he meant it to start a fight with Jimbo. I think he was just trying to get a message across to his people by saying, it's going this direction. I don't like it, but if we have to play this game, okay, let's play this game.
On that note, Clemson right now, barely in the top 40 in the 2023 team recruiting rankings.
I mean, it's pitiful. It's pitiful. And Dabo has no one to blame but himself. Again, I appreciate his honesty, but it can also be the thing that brings what has been something so special at Clemson to a screeching halt because they're not equipped to play in today's day and age.
With that said, Alabama also barely in the top 40, but nobody's worried about Alabama adapting and adjusting.
They'll figure it out. 615-737-1045. Team Jimbo or Team Saban? Pick one. Zach in Nashville is up first. Hello, Zach.
Yeah, Aggie alum here. Been listening to you guys' comments. They've been great. I think Saban stepped in at this time. I mean, he's usually pretty calculated per your comments, but I think he is trying to accomplish something here. I'm questioning what that is, but hey, most Aggies didn't want NIL. Saban is a guy that for a decade now has been pushing for NIL, and now that it's here, he's mad that I guess his alumni base is not as rich as some others. Like, sorry that we've got 600,000 living alums and a lot of oil money and all that stuff. Hey, we're just playing by the rules that they set up. I would love to go back to pre-NIL days, but those, it's a new world now. So if we see some restrictions, we'll adhere to that. We'll adapt to that. But I don't know if I've ever heard anything more hypocritical by a czar of college football, as Jimbo called him. But everybody knows what Bama's been doing for decades now. I mean, players are coming out of the woodworks, coaches are coming out of the woodworks making comments, and it's funny because it's like, hey, this is all provable, guy. You haven't proven anything. If we paid players, we did it, up to speed per NIL rules. So I don't know. It's going to be an interesting October 8th. I know that, but I don't think that many people are going to be Team Saban outside of Bama and Gumps out there. So we'll see what happens.
Thanks for the call, Zach. 615-737-1045. We'll take more of your phone calls on this and update the polls next.
The Buck Reising Show is powered by Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. Go to springhillac.com.
Sure is. All the interviews today, whether it's Dan Lust, David Ubben, all of the great content and conversation made possible by our friends at Spring Hill Heating and Cooling. We're grateful for that. If you missed any of the show today, make sure you check out the podcast. It's available in your favorite podcast app. Just search The Buck Reising Show. And while you're there, maybe leave us a 5-star rating. Maybe leave us a review. We haven't done the thing that we said we were going to do. If people leave nasty reviews about us, but leave us 5 stars, we're going to read them on the air. Have you checked any of those?
No. Do you have one?
No. I was not prepared. I just realized that we said that we were going to do that, and then we never got around to doing it, which is, typical. You also said that somebody was trying to create tension within the show, but I wasn't sure what you were talking about. I didn't have my headphones on while you were trying to talk to me.
Yeah, Puka's always trying to start stuff. As we ask people, are they Team Jimbo or Team Saban? She says, Team Buck or Team Lucas? Poll.
Well, you only bring that to air because you know that the public support is going to be overwhelmingly in your favor. That's the only reason that you do that. So I'm very happy for you. Liam Neeson. Does Lucas only bring things to people's attention that are entirely self-serving?
Yes.
Yeah, at least he's honest. I appreciate that. What else is going on? Did we miss anything today? I feel like there's a lot going on that I feel like we had so much today that we didn't get to.
I know, jam-packed show.
Alexi Lawless, by the way, jam-packed show tomorrow. Alexi Lawless is going to be in studio tomorrow. He's going to be attending the Nashville SC Atlanta United game on Saturday. I will also be in attendance. Lucas will be in attendance.
Big win last night.
Yeah. We didn't talk about that. That's what I meant to
Didn't do the soccer minute.
Yeah. You want to do the soccer minute quickly, or do we have time?
Eastern Conference leaders Montreal come to town. Nashville was reeling after an awful performance on Sunday in Houston where they had a lot of squad rotation. I mean, we played Gary Smith's comments just roasting the team depth after that game, but they responded. They came out, really controlled the game in the first half, thought they were on the forefront, created the better chances. Alex Moyle with a nice individual run in the box and finished it into the top left corner to put Nashville ahead. And then an insurance goal from Hani Mukhtar and a good combination with CJ Sapong, and Nashville gets 3 points against arguably the hottest team in MLS, the Eastern Conference leaders, Montreal, and on to Atlanta. They played Atlanta the other week in the U.S. Open Cup. This is now an MLS regular season game. So Atlanta United coming right back to town on Saturday.
I probably should not say this on the airwaves of my employer, but I plan on being incredibly inebriated on Saturday night.
What a great sentence to lead into something with.
Yeah, let's do the polls.
I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. Because the polls have closed and the votes have been tallied, it's time for a poll update. And he's a good boy. Buck Reising Show producer and correspondent, Lucas Panzica.
We haven't done The Godfather in a while.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford. You can custom order any new Ford from Two Rivers. They will deliver it to you when it gets manufactured. What message does the Preds keeping David Poile and John Hynes send? Puka says it sends the message that as long as you make the playoffs, we don't care. Scott echoes that. Goody says we love mediocrity.
Yeah, I mean, it sends a message to me of stagnation, and I appreciate where they're coming from, but also I can feel that they've plateaued and that does not look to be improving under the current administration. But we'll see how it goes.
Do you care if Texas A&M, quote unquote, bought every player, as Nick Saban suggests? 75% don't care.
I don't care at all. I think everybody should be buying as many players as humanly possible, within the legal realm of NIL and not questionable trafficking situations.
The Titans are open to extending Derrick Henry. Fair or foul? 69% nice. Say fair.
That's foul, kids. 69% of you are lost in the clouds, but I appreciate your homerism.
Do you like the NCAA allowing conferences to do away with divisions? So we didn't really get to this with all the Jimbo stuff, but the Pac-12 has already come out and said they're doing away with divisions this season. It'll be the two teams with the highest win percentage in conference to play for the Pac-12 title. 69%. Nice. Back-to-back. Say yes, they like it.
69 and 69, that just feels like a cluster to me. Anyway, we can talk more about that tomorrow. What happened?
I'm lost because we had so many polls today.
What
and
I made a casual sex joke and you panicked. What happened?
Worst first pitch ever: Steve Aoki, 50 Cent, Dr. Fauci, or Ron Slay. 40% say it is 50 Cent, the OG.
Yeah,
terrible
50
first pitch.
50 loses.
26% Dr. Fauci, 19% Slay, 15% Aoki.
Yeah, I think 15%. I think there's a smaller percentage that has seen the Steve Aoki thing. I watched it during one of the commercial breaks.
Really
it is
bad.
damn near vertical in the air. It is laugh out loud funny.
Which are you? Team Jimbo or Team Saban? 63% are Team Jimbo.
I think I'm Jimbo, which is not typically a road that I would like to go down, other than he continues to provide us incredible content for the radio show.
Should we put it to a poll tomorrow? Who wins in a fight, Jimbo Fisher or Nick Saban?
No, that's less interesting. That's like saying, would Mike Vrabel kick John Harbaugh's ass?
Well, that's not even a conversation.
I don't know. John Harbaugh's got a little crazy. Harbaugh brothers, they're crazy. It is literally in their blood. I believe them to be insane.
Yeah, don't count out crazy.
You don't mess with crazy, even as Mike Vrabel is a giant human being. Those the polls?
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That is the show. We will do it again tomorrow with Alexi Lawless, with Coach Dave McGinnis, and with you. Blaine and Mickey got you next.